Hello, my name is Justin Fiaschetti, and today I'm going to show you how I made this vase. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy. I began making this vase back in March of 2016. To start off, I'm ripping down maple and walnut strips to a 1/16 of an inch wide. These will be laminated together to form the triangle pattern that goes on the bottom and the top of the vase. For gluing them together, I'm using Titebond Original to make a solid seam. I'm alternating the walnut and the maple to give a zebra-looking pattern, to mimic the zebra wood that is used as the main wood in the vase. For clamping these, I put a board on either side of the lamination to equally distribute the pressure. With the glue fully dried, I can move over to the table saw and cut these pieces out at a 45-degree angle. These cuts will later be paired up with each other to make the triangle pattern that is seen on the bowl. A complementary zebra wood piece is also being cut to form the full segment. To save wood, I'm switching the miter angle with each cut so that I can make triangles without having to waste wood. With these pieces cut, I can glue together one zebra wood piece and one of the lamination piece. This will give me two squares, which I can then glue together to form the triangle. With the pieces glued up, I can take them over to the disc sander and sand them to the appropriate angle to form the ring. With these angles sanded, I can place glue on the sides of the segments and put them in a ring to be glued up. As the ring is fairly small, I'm simply using a rubber band to keep the segments together. Now I can move on to making the full body of the vase. To do this, I'm starting off with zebra wood and ripping it down to get it into strips, which will then be turned into segments. I'm using a piece of blue tape as a stop block to prevent kickback. So in order to get the half rings perfectly flat so they can go together, I've made this jig, which is just a piece of MDF screwed down to a pine board with the segments in between it, and this is perfectly straight, so I overlap the edge of the segment with the edge of the board and then run it through the table saw to give me a nice flat and parallel side. With the body rings finished, I can now move on to what will become the second highest and second lowest segmented ring in the vase. It will be made out of maple and mahogany. I can rip strips of these two woods down to the appropriate width so that they can be cut on the table saw to make the rings. Instead of angling my miter gauge, I'm angling the blade to give me the correct angle. This will be easier as it has to be a very specific angle. Also, the width of the segments isn't too much. I can now glue them by dipping one edge into a pile of glue. This will give appropriate coverage and allow for the end grain of the segments to soak up wood. Now I can move on to the main feature ring. This will also be made out of mahogany and maple. I can start by ripping them down to the appropriate width and then cross-cutting them into little chunks. These chunks will be cut on a diagonal to form triangles, which will then be glued together. So in order to mark out all the triangles that I need exactly, I first made a master triangle that is perfectly the size, and then I made this jig right here which allows this triangle to slip in, and I surrounded it with these, and that means that I can flip it upside down so that it's easier to mark. Slide it in. Draw a mark on it. And now I have the mark for my triangle. These triangles can then be cut at the bandsaw and tuned up on the disc sander to bring them exactly to the line. Then one maple and one mahogany piece can be glued together to form a single block. These blocks can then be taken to table saw with the blade at an angle to cut the appropriate angles for them to form a ring. These segments can now be glued together. The glue surface on these segments is actually long grain, so the ring will be much stronger than before. With all the rings done, I can mount the first ring to the base and true it up so that I can mount more rings. As it's cold out, I'm using my space heater to keep the glue from being inactive. I decided to turn this vase as I went, so with every ring that I added, I would begin turning a little bit away, forming it closer and closer to the shape that I wanted as I added rings. This saved on chatter and made it easier to get down deep into the vase. Because the vase is very long, I made a steady rest out of some rollerblade wheels that will stop it from chattering as I turn it. If I had not turned the inside as I went, I never would have been able to actually turn all the way to the bottom, as I don't have tools that long. In order to get the rim down to the 3/16 that I wanted, I had to use a scraper so that it wouldn't chatter too badly. With the inside fully turned, I can move to turning the outside down to the appropriate thickness. I used a combination of tools ranging from carbide scrapers to bowl gouges to regular high-speed steel scrapers. This vase pushed my lathe to the very furthest it could go. The tailstock was actually hanging off of the bed of the lathe, and the lock was only half on it. With it fully sanded, I can add finish. I'm using boiled linseed oil and poly mix. In order to finish the inside, I opted to pour the finish into the vase and then shake the vase around so that it would cover all parts. By pouring the finish in, I know that I can get a full coverage because I poured excess in and then simply poured out the stuff I wouldn't need. If you have any other suggestions on how I could improve this video, please leave them in the comments, especially if it has to do with the filming and editing of this video, as I'm just starting out with that. Also, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments or email me and I will be happy to get back to you. I'm very happy with how this vase turned out. This was a big challenge for me, and I'm glad that it came out as well as it did. It is made of zebra wood, Katalox, mahogany, and maple. It stands 18 inches tall and around 6 inches wide. There are over 500 pieces in this piece, and the wall thickness is around 3/16 inch the whole way through. Thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe.